I'm Marti Mefford. I'm with Arlington County. I'm with the Arlington Addiction Recovery Initiative. And we always have a booth at the fair. And we do our best to bring like different resources to county members and residents of Arlington County and different jurisdictions. And this year we're focusing on the importance of language matters. And with that being really helping people understand the importance of their words when they are talking about people that are in recovery from substance use, from mental health issues. There's a lot of stigma in those two worlds, and we've seen with time that a lot of people actually end up being not going into treatment because of the stigma. So there's not as many people getting help that we hope would get help. And so we're just hoping to start having conversations with people at the fair to help them, be aware, learn about language, give them alternatives, give them suggestions. And so that's why we're here. That's what we're talking about tonight. And for me, I was going to share personally, for me, I've been in the field since '91, and even in that time, I've seen the words that we use in the field of substance use change over time. And it was actually hard for me in the beginning because I was so used to saying certain words, and even the professionals around me were using those words. And then I started realizing that there is a more person-centered way to have conversations, especially people that are struggling with issues. I realized how by making them the primary topic of our conversation as opposed to their disease, that there wasn't as much shame, and they're more willing to talk to others, and if they had a setback, they'd be more willing to talk to people about it. So that's why I'm fired up about this. That's why I'm excited we're dealing with that this year at our booth. Cassandra, what are your thoughts? Why does this matter? Why does this issue matter to you?
It's important to me because I was one of those people that got stigmatized. And so I kind of know how clients feel, because you're already in a state of mind where you feel less than, your self-esteem is so low, and to have someone to speak to you that's trying to help you, or you want to feel like you're supportive, make you feel like you're smaller, and that's why a lot of clients take so long and don't accept the help when it's offered to them because of the way it's presented to them. And presentation is for me, making them feel like they're human is very important, because when you're in active using, you feel like, you're nothing. You already feel that way. So it's like, if you asking me to get some help, why? They don't have any hope. And so you're talking to them in a way that's downgrading. They kind of shut down and isolate and continue to stay in their madness, when if you would have changed the presentation or conversation and added a little more respect, they would have felt like, okay, I'm worthy, and offer them some hope. Because that's what you're doing when you change the conversation and the language. You're offering them some hope and letting them know that, hey, it's going to be all right. You can do this. It's okay. And I think that would change, the perspective that they have when they engage with people who language change for them.
It's so interesting. I was really excited when I knew that you were approaching this from the language matters perspective, because I thought, yes, and when my background was in the mental health field, and when I first got into it, like, the language was totally different. 35 years ago, we just used different language. And when you know better, you do better, and I feel like we know better. Someone once said to me that words matter because people matter.
Right.
And I feel like that's what you just said, right? I mean, the words matter because the people on the receiving end of those words matter. But I've actually realized, like, it would be so helpful, I think, for people to hear, like, what's better language?
Right.
Because people mean well, but sometimes they don't know what to say, and then they don't say anything, and that's even worse in some ways. So what are good examples for people? Let's put it that way.
A person with substance use disorder, that's making it about the disease and not about the person, and separating that, which again helps that person adjust their thinking. It's like, oh, right, this is a disease, this is a chronic illness, and it helps them hopefully be able to take some of that shame, reduce, the self-hate that can happen.
I think it's important to offer people hope, because they're already in a state where they have lost all hope.
When you do your peer work, do you help people self-correct their own language? Because are people using it themselves, kind of
It's
against
like
themselves?
when they listen to you speak, they kind of follow suit, like, and then listening to you use a different language, then they start kind of lifting themselves up, like, okay, I'm not an addict, I'm a person that used substance, or I'm not a crackhead, I'm a person that used substance, and this is a disease. And when you go to the hospital for diabetes, they don't say bring your sugar whatever in here, and you shouldn't, you know what I'm saying? They don't do all that. So it's a disease, and you treat it as such. You don't degrade people because they have a disease, right? Because when they start, they lose all power. And so they need some hope to build them back up to where they was before they picked up. So I truly agree that the language must change. If the language changed, then things will start changing,
So one of the things that has changed in my attention, and I'm not somebody who knows a lot about this, but is the availability of some interventions when there's a risk of overdose, right? Because that's just exploded, right, as an epidemic. But also, there are interventions that we should all know exist or are possible, right? I mean, what are those?
There's a lot of interventions. I mean, on the one thing that we're very active in is making sure individuals know what the signs of overdose are, and understanding the risk of fentanyl poisoning, accidental opiate overdosing, and making sure they know how to administer Narcan, making sure they know how they can get it. Narcan for Arlington County residents is free. They can request it. We'll mail it to them free of charge. You can actually, almost anywhere you live, you can just look up Narcan near me, and there's some organization that can mail Narcan to you or tell you where you can pick it up.
So I could, just as a resident,
yes,
have this and have it available in case I happen to be.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
That seems like a pretty good thing to do.
Yeah. I mean, if they just, it's literally, if you just look up Narcan Arlington, it will bring up the website. It's onearlington.org is where you can have the resources there. We also have fentanyl test strips, so individuals who are using drugs can test their drugs to see if they have fentanyl in them. So then they know I either need to use less, go slow, throw it away, or make sure I'm using with somebody that has Narcan. We also have treatment. We have so many treatment options. We have an outpatient program for individuals who need medication to help with their opiate dependency. And Cassandra's really involved in that. She helps with the groups for that. We can send people to an inpatient program. We have outpatient. We have groups. We have peer recovery specialists who we try to meet people where they are. So if they're just really thinking about maybe making some changes, then a peer recovery specialist can just start having those conversations, encourage them, let them know what's out there. So yeah, those are some of the main things. We also work on reducing the amount of opiates that are in the community. So we do like medication tape bags, we do deactivation bags. We host events throughout the year where we help collect people's medication, and the police take it and they dispose of it. So yeah, but education's a big thing right now. Just making sure people understand the dangers, especially pills that are coming from someone other than a doctor. There's a very high likelihood that it's going to have fentanyl in it. A fake, Adderall, fake Percocet, fake Xanax. Those things can have fentanyl in them because it's very readily accessible. It's cheap and it gives a sense of euphoria. So it's added to these fake pills. And a lot of people, not just kids, a lot of people don't realize the dangers in these pressed pills, these fake pills.
I also feel like the peer specialist is a really, I feel like the peer specialist is a new, improved intervention as well, right?
What it does is they're offering hope, because I'm always saying, hey, look, I was you, and look at me now. And they be like, oh, Miss Cassandra, we admire you. Thank you for coming and sharing with us, because I understand how they feel. I've been there. I wore those shoes. I walked in those shoes. And me being able to be a recovering person, I just let them know that if I can do it, you can do it. And I was right where you are. So, you just have to want it and do it.
Can I ask what made the difference for you?
What made the difference for me? Well, I just got tired of living that way, and I decided I want to live instead of die. So that was a decision I had to make.
I think also having a peer recovery specialist, if I'm struggling with making this decision, wanting to stop using alcohol or opiates, whatever, and I go seek help, oftentimes it's someone who's maybe just doesn't look like me, isn't like
right.
me, and I'm like, yeah, sure, you went to school and you got your degree, but what do you know? And it's hard to relate, hard to connect.
Connect with them, because it's like, you haven't walked in my shoes. So with a peer, it's totally different. They can get honest and open with a peer, because they know that a peer understands them more than anybody, right? And a lot of them have so much shame and guilt that they're not going to tell everything, so that they can get the support that they need if they're open and honest, because of the language. And it just shuts them back down. Like, I don't know. I have a great rapport with clients because I'm open with clients. I'm honest with clients. And I accept them where they are. I meet them where they are. I don't judge them, right? I didn't like if somebody judged me, so I don't judge, right? And I just make them feel like they're human again. No matter what's going on, you're always going to be human. And you should be treated as such, even though right now you're not able to treat yourself in that way. But others should respect another human enough to treat them the way they want to be treated. Just because they have a disease, like I'm a diabetic, if I go, nobody walks around and treat me any different, right? So why should they treat a person with a disease, another different kind of disease, any different? Like, you just have to support them and let them know that there's help, there's hope, and point them in the right direction. And when they're ready, their life will start changing, you know?
I feel
And
like
that's the beauty of this job.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I feel like for me, it's sort of a gift to have been invited into this conversation, you know, and it's occurring to me like, I don't know, I think what could we be doing to create more opportunities for conversation, right? Because hearing the stories, hearing the hope is such a different message than what I think a lot of the popular messaging around it is, which brings us back to why the language matters.
Right. Yeah, and there, you know, there's actually there's so many resources out there. Like if you literally just Google stigma in addiction, there's a really amazing organization called Shatterproof. They do a lot of great work. They have a lot of really good videos and resources. And they talk about the research that's been done, because the World Health Organization did a study on the how negative language impacted people who were trying to get recovery, trying to get help. So they have that study. They refer to that study. Arlington County is doing a training in September because that's National Recovery Month. We're going to have a training on language matters and have more conversational. It's going to be at Lever Run at 7 o'clock on the 24th, and just talking to people about more of this, having this conversation and giving them some information and giving them some resources. I interact with people a lot at different events when we're doing like Narcan training, and I've had people say, well, they're just an addict, or they've made that decision, and I always like literally want to chase them down, and I will, if they're still talking to me, I will say, I promise you this is not something they chose to do. This is a disease that involves the brain, and I hope that you'd have as much compassion for them as you would someone else who has a chronic illness. And I often have said things like, if you will learn more about this disease, if you will learn more about the nature of addiction, the science of addiction, learn about stigma and addiction, you'll be surprised how you may end up changing how you feel about that person. And people can tell when you've changed how you feel about them. It changed how they react. So for me, I think it creates like a chain reaction of positive changes. So.
And what I would say to them is put yourself in their shoes. She got her hand. I would just say that. And saying that, it helps me in a lot of different areas as well. When I'm going through any type of issue, I take the focus off of me and be like, what if that was me? Would I, be mean, or would I treat you with disrespect? So you don't want anybody to treat you that way, and it just helps me get back focused that they're human too, and they have feelings. And I wouldn't want anybody to speak to me that way, so I'm not going to speak to them that way. And it just keeps the respect level with some balance in it. And a lot of clients appreciate balance. They appreciate you showing them some unconditional love, even though you're not touching them. They could feel it. So, I would just say put yourself in their shoes. Or if that was your child, or if that was a relative, would you feel the same way?
Like I've been able to see my own personal shift being in this field for so long, And for me, I've always had a heart. I've always cared about people, and I've been very appreciative of how the language has changed, because I feel like it fits more with how I personally view things. I truly believe that we all have innate goodness. That's just how I am. I think everyone, regardless of what they've done or gone through, that they have innate goodness. So for me, by focusing on the person, it lines up with my beliefs. And it's not judgmental, it's not critical. And I've always been someone who's had a lot of hope. I've always been a half glass full person. So for me, it just matches up with who I am inside by focusing on the positive. And yeah.
I love also that you use the language of recovery, because I think otherwise it feels like, oh, well, they made that choice. They're gone, and they're gone for good. But that's not true. I mean, you're a great advocate and example of that. But more importantly, I mean, sort of having everybody think, oh no, it's not a fixed state, right? And so to me, that the idea and the language of recovery is also really powerful for somebody who doesn't necessarily know anything about it, but can understand, like, I have hope for this person. Not just that they have hope, but I have hope for them too.
I just remember going through different treatments, and I worked at this job for like 15 years, and I was in active addiction, and everybody knew it, because I didn't use at work. It was that everybody knew it because I kept the job for 15 years, and my patterns. And on this job, I think I went to prison maybe 2 or 3 times while I worked there, and they didn't fire me. My director had a sister that was out there, and he understood, and he knew I was a single mom, so he had a lot of compassion and empathy for me, and that's why he kept me there for 15 years, because when I was able to sober up, I was productive, right? And so they seen a lot of potential, and so they just kept trying to.
They believed in you.
Right.
Yeah.
They believed in me, but I didn't even believe in myself.
Right. There was something more than the addiction there.
People are really looking for, because they lost hope. So if you meet them where they are and start, hey, you got this, or look at the good things that they do, opposed to always looking at the negative, look at the positive, and build them up from there. And eventually they'll get where they're supposed to.
I love that story. Good for that boss. Good for that boss.
I know, right?